Today is March 21st, 2024. It's episode 65 of the Sports Daily College Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Vowells. And as usual, I'm joined by Joe Meade. Tonight, Joe and I will go over some of the round of 64 action that got underway today, from some big upsets to some pretty impressive performances from the favorites. So, Joe, let's start in chronological order. The team that opened up the day for us was Michigan State, and they took care of business. They beat Mississippi State by 18. They kept Tolu Smith in check, only 9 points for him. How impressed with you with the Spartans?
I was thoroughly impressed. I think a lot of it also had to do with Miss State just did not play good basketball. I think anyone who watched that game would take that away, would take that much away. But I really want to give credit to Michigan State. I think they were a team toward the second half of February that a lot of people doubted. I think after they beat Penn State and Michigan, they probably got a little too much hype to no fault of their own. They lost to Iowa, they lost to Ohio State, playing totally unspectacular defense toward the end of those games. But, see where they are a month later is pretty remarkable. There was not a moment in this game where I thought Miss State was going to make a comeback. I think most people felt that way. Jaden Akins, I know unspectacular numbers field goal wise, 6 of 14, but it really felt like this was his best game in a while because Sean, every time they needed a big shot from him, he just bang a three, kick it out. Tyson Walker didn't have to do much. He had 19, but remarkably for Michigan State, I think I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. Their big men played really well, Sean. Holding Tolu Smith, I think Tolu only had 9 points. Didn't even get going. He was took only 5 field goal attempts. Only played 27 minutes because he had foul trouble most of the game. And frankly, it wouldn't have mattered. He was totally ineffective. At Mississippi State, it seemed to me, and I knew about this. I didn't watch too much SEC as much as you and Mike. They just seemed to jack threes as their solution. And Michigan State, I know they struggled a lot on the offensive boards this year. This game, they did remarkably well. Miss State got very little offensive rebounds, very little second chances. And it's no coincidence, Sean, that Michigan State's only a 3.5-point dog early on to UNC. I know we're looking ahead a bit. This is the team we probably expected the whole year, and I don't even think they played their best. I think they could get a lot more. I think they turned the ball over a little too much in the first half. They kind of let Miss State hang a little around until the second half. This game could have been a lot worse than it was. But, Sean.
Yeah, I think Michigan State did a lot of things well that they really haven't this year. Making 10 threes, that was a big problem early on. They're 50% from the field against a team in Mississippi State that is supposed to be one of the elite defenses in the SEC. So I was pretty impressed with that. Michigan State were making shots. They're moving the ball. They did have 16 turnovers, but the shots that they were getting were almost worth it. And then, Joe, I think this is more so on Chris Jans, but we've seen some, average at best fives in the Big Ten kind of go to school on these Michigan State forwards, and now you get a really elite one coming in, and he has 5 shot attempts. That is unacceptable from my end. That was their way to win the game, was to win the battle at the 5 and then have Josh Hubbard make some shots and try and draw Tyson Walker. But I was disappointed in this effort from Mississippi State. I think they did a lot of things poorly that they usually do well, and I think Michigan State did a lot of things well that they usually do poorly. But I agree with you. I don't think after the first couple minutes, it did not seem like Mississippi State was going to win this basketball game, and it ended up being a pretty ugly final score.
Yeah, like I said, Sean, I live here in Southeast Michigan, plenty of Spartans around here. Not one of them who I was watching live with seemed remotely worried, which is surprising considering the pattern they've had this year. So really good for Michigan State. Honestly, really happy for them because they're probably the most critiqued team the entire year based on the preseason expectations. And Sean, I'm not going to say they're as good as this team was. And this isn't even like trying to promote Spartan fans to feel this way. It kind of feels like one of these, like maybe a 2015, not 2015, maybe a 2013 Michigan team, a team that really struggled toward the end. Clearly, they had a better record, but it seemed like that team was just waiting for March to start. And I feel Michigan State had the same sort of feeling. I think they really did not like having to perform to those expectations because in reality, no one was going to beat Purdue for the Big Ten regular season title. And Michigan State, those expectations were out the door by December when they lost the opening Big Ten game to Wisconsin. So I feel like this is the first time they've played pretty loose in a while, and the first time, this is what these guys came back for. This is why Tyson's back. This is why AJ came back, and this is why Akins um ultimately came back. And I know a lot of the freshmen get a lot of criticism. I know Carr and Booker had some moments today, but
They hit a three.
yeah, no, and that's what Michigan State needs. I think they're going to have to be carried by Walker, Akins. AJ's going to have to be more effective, and Malik Hall, he did some nice things today, did some not so nice things. It's going to take a complete and total effort the next game against UNC in Charlotte. So good for them, but certainly plenty of work to do. I think they could lose the turnovers, and I think just continue making threes, and I think they could. I think UNC Michigan State, Sean. That's the game I'm most looking forward to on Saturday for now.
If there's one thing that Michigan State has consistently done well this year, Joe, it is that they can hang with anybody. We saw it at Illinois, at Purdue, against some of the good teams that they played in the non-conference. And that's why their net ranking is so good. They can be in a game with a good team, and that's when they're playing pretty bad too. So I think chances are pretty low for a team as inconsistent as Michigan State to have a performance like this 2 times in a row. But you can't have a good performance 2 times in a row if you don't do it in the first time. So good luck to Michigan State. They certainly didn't look like this was going to happen with how they ended the season and what happened in the Big Ten tournament, but they will get their shot at UNC. The next game, Joe, which was I would say a minor upset, maybe a major upset if you consider that it was essentially a 5 versus a 14 seed. Duquesne, Coach Keith Dambrot's career survives at least another game. They knocked down BYU. They took a big lead early. They did surrender the lead. BYU never got it, but the game was tied. And the Dukes knock off the Cougars. Thoughts on this one?
Sean, this was probably, so we're shooting this just for context for people who listen tomorrow morning, 11:22 Eastern time. I thought this would be the most shocking result of the day, truthfully. BYU was a top 10. They were a team the analytics love, Sean. I think them, Auburn, and Illinois take out all the 1 seeds them and Auburn were who the analytics love the most. And for them to lose, and frankly, I didn't think they were going to make it as competitive as they did at the end. I thought it was like an F, not effort, but just an F performance all around in the first half. And I still think it was a heck of a year for BYU. I think you have to take into account they were picked 11th or 12th this year in the Big 12, so I don't want to completely shred their season based off one performance. But it's hard to feel anything but disappointment, and mainly for all the people who picked the brackets out there. I think Mike liked BYU a lot too, and I'm just I'm mainly disappointed in myself. I picked them going far in a lot of brackets. But Sean, I think you offer a better take than I will. What's your stance on this?
I think it was a perfect storm of. I think the game ended at the perfect time for Duquesne, right? We saw them kind of, 6 or 7 minutes left when BYU tied it, and then Duquesne was able to give that last push and get over the line. But, if this game was 4 minutes shorter, I think BYU wins. If this game is 4 minutes longer, I think BYU wins. But it's not what it's about. Duquesne got the job done. They had a bunch of really clutch, big-time shots down the stretch where BYU just couldn't guard them. And, that was a little bit surprising, to be honest. BYU, no elite defense by any measurements, but, Duquesne is here because of their defense and not their offense. And I thought it was actually their offense that got them across the line today. Their defense was pretty solid, but BYU was always going to make shots. Mark Pope does a really good job at X's and O's over there, and they will get open shots, and they did, and they started to make them down the stretch. Jackson Robinson, 25 off the bench, but other than him, they were 14 of 42 from the field and 3 of 13 from three. Just not going to get it done. And, you have a deep team. I think, like you said, season as a whole pretty successful for BYU.
Absolutely.
All things considered, but definitely a sting to end it because they should have won this game. And they should have been a 5 seed. We talked about why they were bumped and why Duquesne were bumped up. But the Dukes get to play another game, and that's going to be against Illinois, Joe. They took on Morehead State. And the Eagles were trailed by just one at halftime. Riley Minix and Jordan Lathon really kept the Eagles in this game early, but Illinois pulled away in the second half via a triple-double for Marcus Damask. 11 rebounds, 10 assists, 12 points. It's the first triple-double since John Morant in the NCAA tournament. Illinois looked pretty good in this second half, and they're going to be liking their chances to get to that second weekend that they've been craving so desperately.
Yeah, as you said, it's almost a 20-year drought since 2005 when Bruce Weber took them to the Final Four. So, Sean, I know you called out Domask. I have to call out Terrence Shannon. I've been a fan of
he was awesome.
his play for a while, and he kind of willed them to not a victory, but he kind of willed them to the domination they had in the second half. If you peered away, and admittedly I did this for a little at the office, if you peered away for more than 2 minutes, you might have missed the storm Illinois had. And I think that's what they've been missing the last two tourney runs.
It was a kill shot.
Yeah, totally. I don't know. I really can't point out specifics of why. This year, though, their offense, I think obviously Domask is a huge reason why. But they could just go in spurts. Like in 2 minutes, Illinois could go on like a 10-0 run. And I felt like last year they didn't really believe they could have done that. And maybe it's a team culture issue. I'm sure as our Big Ten listeners know, that's been floated on here plenty of times. But, Sean, it's pretty remarkable that Illinois was doubted to win this game at halftime by a lot of people. In reality, they've just been a really good team. Ever since Terrence Shannon, once he got back into the rhythm when he was reinstated, they've just been one of the best teams, probably top 10 team in the country, seriously. And I don't think we've given them enough credit, and I think today they've kind of shown against a team that's never played them before what they could really look like. So definitely pressures on them against Duquesne. I think they're going to be heavy favorites. I don't know what they are right now, but
9.5 points.
9.5 point favorites. That's about right. So I think if you're Illinois, you just need to keep doing what you're doing. Don't turn the ball over. Stay out of foul trouble. Do all the fundamental things, and I think Brad Underwood is going to get them to the Sweet 16.
Something, Joe, that doesn't usually happen for Illinois. 37 bench points. And that was most notably led by Dane Danger, who had 21 and 8 on 9 of 9 shooting, 3 for 4 from the free throw line. Morehead State had no answers to this guy, and Brad Underwood has certainly not unleashed him as much as he probably could have this year, but how about Danger in this one? He was dominant.
I don't know if that was stonewalling the entire year or if it's just an outlier. I think you could say it's both. We're really not going to know until the next round or rounds. What are you leading that is?
So usually you would hold him back in the mid-major games because you're playing, Minix was the 4 for them, and you're playing smaller teams, and then, you could throw him out there against Edie and the big dudes in the Big Ten, but that just never really happened for him. And then you go back to mid-major in the first round of the tournament, and Morehead don't really have a center. I mean, Miles is a pretty big guy, 7 feet, 235, but, if he's not that much different from the Big Ten forward. So I wonder if, this wasn't the plan, and he scored on a couple possessions in a row, so Brad just kind of let him cook. But it kind of changes Illinois a little bit on both sides of the ball. They are typically the finesse team with a bunch of 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" guys who can beat you off the dribble, but they don't really have a bruiser. And if you can move Hawkins to the 4, he's fine. He can play stretch 4. I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for them. And I think Duquesne will kind of be a similar matchup to them. You have the typical 4s and 5s that you see in a lot of mid majors, 6'9", 6'10" guys, and then you have a couple guards who can get buckets. But Illinois looked pretty good in this one, and when you have the kill shot run like they did, you only need to tie the other 36 minutes of the game, which is pretty much what they did. But I'm curious to see how Brad Underwood employs Dane Dangerfield, because Joe, what was he on the scouting report for this game? Maybe 8th or 9th?
I'll put it this way: they clearly treated him like he was 8th or 9th.
Yeah, so that will be on Saturday. Duquesne against Illinois. We've got another sort of upset, Joe. We've got Oregon taking down South Carolina 87-73. The Pac-12 tournament champs kept it going against a team that deserves a lot of credit for another great year in South Carolina over there in Pittsburgh. But the Ducks had a special performance from Jermaine Couisnard. 40 points for the senior from Indiana. That is his career high, and against his former team, he was a Gamecock a couple of years ago, and Fali Dante dominated with 23 points. Again, this was one of the other games that South Carolina never really looked like they were going to win the game.
No, Sean, and Oregon, if you look at the 3-point, 7-16, that's nothing crazy. It's just you see the outlier performances from Couisnard and Dante, 40 and 23. Oregon, and this is mainly Mike. This is your and Mike's take. Oregon the entire year wasn't fully healthy, so I feel like this is just them. This is what they probably could have been the whole year if they were. And going forward, Sean, I think this is a pretty popular upset, and I put that in quotes, just like you do. But I'll put it this way, Sean. The game against Creighton, that's probably going to be a really entertaining game Saturday. That could be one of the more high-scoring games we see. I mean, this combined for what, 160? You think we could see up to 170 in Oregon Creighton this Saturday?
I think so. I think we're going to try and do this every night this week, and we'll preview tomorrow's games each day. I think this was a little bit of a fluke performance from Oregon. I mean, they did close as favorites in this game, so no, not discounting them at all. But Couisnard is a guy who averages 15. Solid player, really good player, but if he has you don't want to say this, but if he has an average game, they lose. And so he played a lot of minutes. Dante played 36 minutes as a center. He is a double-double machine, though, 16 and 8. I just think that they're kind of made up similar to Creighton in the way that they don't play a lot of players, and they're big as a rim protector, and they have guards who can go off Shireman, Couisnard, Kalkbrenner, Dante. I think the matchup could be pretty even, which, I would give Creighton the slight edge in it, but I think we could see Oregon keep be neck and neck the entire way and steal that game. But, South Carolina, similar season to BYU, honestly. Massive, massive overachievers. And unfortunately, in these 6-11s, the 11 seeds are usually teams who have, come in either stolen a bid like Oregon or won a bunch of conference tournament games to be one of the last teams in. So it's unfortunate, but there's a reason why the 11 seeds have won more than half of the games over 6 seeds in the last decade or so. It's because they're good teams. And they're
hot teams.
And they're hot. And Oregon is certainly that, figuring it out at the right time. Our next game, Joe, it was a one that was very back and forth. Dayton taking down Nevada 63-60. Nevada had a 15-0 run, straddling halftime. And then it was the Flyers who ended the game on a crazy run. This game, Joe, was... I think it was 56-39, Nevada, with 7:36 left at the under 8 timeout. They were up by 17. They scored just 4 points the rest of the way. Dayton scores 24, and the Flyers absolutely steal one in Salt Lake. Thoughts on this one?
Sean, one of our listeners, David, he's a big Nevada fan. I hope you're not listening right now because you're probably still sulking, but tomorrow morning you definitely will be. Sean, this is one of these games, if you're a Nevada fan or any kind of basketball fan with some form of sympathy, you have to feel for Nevada. I there are so many, not collapses like this, but no, I'm going to say it. There are so many collapses like this around the year, but in March it's just amplified. Uh, just look at the win probability throughout the game. It's kind of astonishing. It's like anyone who's taken an econ class or seen some sort of stock, it just that goes all the way up and all the way down. It wasn't like a steady. It was like a steep decline. So is there any other way to say that Nevada lost this game? I think Nevada lost it. I don't think Dayton won. Is that about right?
I don't think Dayton's that good of a team. They have a great
Yeah.
player who can win you a game, but Dayton's typically not built to come back like this. They didn't hit a ton of threes. They hit a couple. Kobe Bray hit a couple, but it is not like that they were down 80-61 and won this game 110-90. It was a low-scoring game that their defense just crumbled late, and it's not like Dayton were running anything complex either. I was really disappointed in this one. Talking to some friends about whether Steve Alford would be a good fit as a coach at Indiana, and I said, guys, like, I appreciate what he did for my team all those years ago, but there's a reason why he hasn't been the Indiana coach yet. He was the Iowa coach, UCLA coach, New Mexico coach, and now Nevada. And unfortunately, my point was backed up real quick. Congrats to Anthony Grant, Deron Holmes, 18-9 in 32 minutes. Pretty solid starting five for Dayton, but they don't really have much after that. They are going to have their work cut out for them as they face Arizona on Saturday. Zona didn't have too much trouble. The Beach kept it close.
No. The Beach at Akron let me down.
Yeah.
Not that I fully predicted that, but I kind of teased it. So for people who took that teaser, that's shame on me if you did.
Yeah, well, a lot of teams believe that every team believes that they can win, right? And typically teams will be ready effort-wise for a game like this, and usually it's that last push to end the first half that the higher-seeded team takes over. That's what happened to Arizona. That's what happened to Akron. And then the second half, they just fully get punched in the face and totally knocked over. But Dayton, Arizona will be Saturday. No times yet. Arizona 9-point favorites so far. We have got the big one, Joe. The reason why the person on our thumbnail for the YouTube listeners, this is the reason why we're doing this right now, Joe, and that is because Oakland became the second team from Michigan of the day to pick up a victory with an 80-76 win over Kentucky. John Calipari, Sweet 16 streak, now 6 years without one, and Jack Golke hits 10 three-pointers as Oakland pulls off the huge upset. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so it'll be another year. So yeah, you're right, Sean. It's 2019, so it'll be 6 years to next season where Kentucky's not playing the second weekend. That is shocking. I really want to give Oakland their flowers, and I know you will, but Sean, I think the prevailing storyline across all college basketball, Field of 68, any social media account you interact with, CBB content, put something out. Is John Calipari done at Kentucky?
Now, Joe, when we did our SEC preview at the beginning of the year, Chuck Aceta and I did it, and we said that this is a big year for Calipari. He has got to exercise some demons. Whether it was, it was mainly in the tournament. It's not for lack of having good teams. If you roll into the NCAA tournament with a 10-9 seed every year, chances are you're not going to win a lot of games. They have been a 2, a 3, and a 6 the last 3 years and have one tournament win. And it was against Ed Cooley's Providence Friars when he was already out the door. So I think, the team clearly just played nervous today. It was very evident. Reeves had a good game and Mitchell had a good game. Those are the two fifth-year seniors. Everyone else played timid, and they were deer in headlights when Oakland started to knock down some triples, and I was watching this game with my dad. I'm like, Dad, we have seen this story before. This is exactly how the St. Peter's game went. Teams hanging around, making some shots, and then they hit a couple late, and they're going to win this game, and that's exactly what happened. Oakland deserves a lot of credit. We talked about it in the lead-up. They've kept a lot of games close with good teams this year, and when you do that, you're gonna end up with one, and they do here.
Yeah, Sean, and we talk about Dolkey, we talk about Townsend, but you know who I want to give a shout out to? Rocket Watts, for some of our big listeners.
I knew it.
There are a lot of people. I'm not one who advertised this a lot. I mean, I rarely had to talk about Oakland. They did play Ohio State and Michigan State this year.
And, I rarely had to. And one more Big Ten team, I think.
Illinois. Illinois, yes. I don't think we talked about Rocket Watts on this podcast since like last season, Sean. But for him to make that last assist on that last huge quarter three, good for him, man. Guy who's bounced around college basketball a lot. For him to have that like signature March moment, really makes you feel good for him. Stuck around the sport. But Sean, I want to touch on something Jeff Goodman said right after the game. I was listening to that while watching the other games before we shot here. Kentucky and Calipari needs to get it through their head. Ever since 2015, there's a reason why they haven't been back to the Final Four. These freshmen in these games, especially as college basketball has gotten older, the sport's gotten older, these teams don't win any. They don't. And I'm not going to go through the last national champions, the last Final Fours. Anyone can do that on their own. All that shows me is he's just stubborn. I really don't get it. And, in Detroit, a lot of people criticize Tom Izzo for being stubborn, not utilizing the portal enough.
Well, Tom Izzo gets his team ready for the tournament no matter how bad they are.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. No matter how bad Michigan State's been. It's like the COVID year was the one year Izzo didn't win a game in the tournament. Every other year, he's won a game in the tournament. Since like the Middle Tennessee debacle, every time he's there, he wins a game. And he still gets criticized like crazy. But Calipari, this is 2 out of 3 times they've lost an absolutely stupid game. Like, there's no reason Kentucky should ever lose to St. Peter's and Oakland. And I don't mean that as a slight to St. Peter's and Oakland. Like, that would be like the college football equivalent of, let's say they have a 16-team playoff. And this wouldn't even be as bad. Let's say... Man shot. Let's say LSU. Yeah, LSU is kind of similar to Kentucky. Let's say at LSU, as the number 3 seed, lost to...
Rutgers.
No, not even. Liberty or
James Madison.
Yeah, a mid-major school. Like, that can't happen.
And it's more of a trend now. I thought there was a lot of coaching mistakes that Calipari made down the stretch. He had 3 timeouts in his pocket and didn't use one until there were 4.9 seconds left and they were down by 5.
Yeah.
There were many times, call a timeout, tell everybody exactly where they need to be standing and exactly what they're doing. Because he was pointing out a lot of stuff and saying, no, like, Reed, you got to come here. Rob, you got to go there. And the coverages that they did against Oakland, I thought, were wildly poor. They just kept running Golke off the initial screen, but then he'd pump fake and rescreen and be open again. They needed to do some kind of trapping or something. He actually just missed a couple. Like, once he got hot, he missed a couple that were open, and he could have buried him, actually, and they could have been buried. But they actually had a couple big shots to stay in this one. Reeves had a couple. Dillingham had one, which you thought like, oh, Oakland's gonna win this one. Okay, now Kentucky might have a shot, but conversation will be had. Everybody knows about John Calipari's lifetime contract.
And the buyout, which is over $33 million right now.
So another team may be interested in it. Calipari might want out. I mean, he might be tired of this. They had an awesome team this year. They were fun. They were really good, and they have as many tournament wins in the last 3 years as some programs that are, in the mud in the Power 5. So.
And Sean, I'll just float this out there now. Just 2 things. Number one, I'm not going to make a Calipari to Michigan claim that likely won't happen. I said it as a joke. But this is a very real theory. John Calipari's 6 years, Rick Pitino's junior. If you look at their career trajectory, John's pretty much not intensely. He's followed what Rick's done. Gone to UMass, like a smaller school in New England. Rick started his head coaching career started his effective head coaching career at BU, then went to Providence, right? Calipari's at UMass, kind of similar to New England school. Goes to the Nets. Rick was obviously Knicks coach and Celtics coach, and then goes to the what was it back in the day? Conference USA, Memphis, Louisville, and then goes to Kentucky. Right? You see the trajectory here. I'm not teasing Calipari to Louisville, but if such a thing was to happen, this could be the time. I don't think anything as crazy would happen, but if it is, this is the window, and we've just entered it.
It's like, well, Calipari gets all the best recruits every year, and I know they won with Davis and Kid Gilchrist and those guys, and then they did pretty well with Wall and Cousins too. But like, where do they go from here? Freshmen in the tournament will always be freshmen, no matter if they're going first overall in the NBA draft or not. I mean, this was the worst game of the year for Reed Sheppard and Rob Dillingham. Dillingham was 2 for 9. Reed Sheppard was 1 for 5. I mean, Justin Edwards had 10 points on 9 shots in 16 minutes. DJ Wagner 0 for 5. Like, all of your freshmen needed to be blanked for something like this to happen, and it was a perfect storm. You get out-rebounded by Oakland. Like, you get out-rebounded by a mid-major team. That should never happen either, especially with especially on the offensive end, Joe. Oakland got 14 offensive rebounds, and I know a couple of them were off long shots, but there was just a lot of things that can't happen that did happen, and that's why they lost. Trey Townsend will be likely going in the transfer portal. He's going to get a big NIL check from wherever he ends up. He's a very solid player. He's given 4 years to Oakland. The fans should be, excited where he ends up because he's gonna do some damage next year wherever that is. And Golke, Joe, last year was a Division II player, and he just schooled a bunch of players who were going to be in the NBA. And that's the beauty of March Madness, really.
Totally, Sean. And if I could make one more comment about Calipari, we ripped him a lot in this cast, but I'll defend him in this sense. From 2011 to 2019, Sean. Think about this trajectory. 2011, Final Four. 2012, championship. 2013, they missed the tourney. Who cares?
And Nerlens Noel, NIT lost to Robert Morris. That was the only year they missed until 21, I think.
Yeah, then they go back to the championship, lose to Shabazz and UConn. Go undefeated. They were 38-1, losing the Final Four. 2016, I believe they were lost in the Sweet 16 to the Hoosiers. 17 were a shot away. We're a May shot away from going back to the Final Four. And so from 2011 to 2017, probably the best coaches in the game were considered to be him, Coach K, Roy. Jay Wright was still up there. Really, Jay was really anointed that when he won the second title in 18. To see that downfall in the course of 6-7 years is crazy. And it just goes to show, people considering top coaches in the game right now to be like Danny Hurley. And Danny Hurley does it the modern way, has a bunch of guys, some portal guys, some young guys, some stars. UConn right now, as we said, is the state of the ideal basketball program. And I'm not saying Calipari is going to have to do that, but that kind of shows where the game's gone in the past 7 years.
Yeah, the Calipari's strength has always been making sure he has more talented players than whoever's across the line. Oftentimes that means you're going to pick up a W, but when these 23 and 24-year-olds have played in 3 NCAA tournaments and can get hot, like, they're gonna win one of the games. And this is another one for the offense, or for the defense wins championships people. That's certainly true. A lot of metrics out there, 26 of the last 28 champions did this. You have to be good at both offense and defense and elite in one. And Kentucky was outside the top 100 in offense or in defense, and that's what ended up costing them in the end. I don't think they defended horribly in this game, but certainly wasn't good enough. And that's the side of the ball that I would fault them for the loss. So, Joe, that's obviously the big one. We have a couple other results. None of them are really all that shocking. We have Iowa State beating South Dakota State by 17. That game was never close. Gonzaga knocked off McNeese by 19. That game was never close either. The Cowboys were a very, very popular upset pick, but that game was over really quick. Didn't expect that. And with the Kansas situation with their injuries, Gonzaga's got to be liking their shot to go to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I think Gonzaga. I think a lot of people felt if they got past this first game, weirdly enough, they were one of these one or nothing. Just based on Tennessee and Purdue, nothing to do with the teams this year, just based on their history. People who rode the Gonzaga pick got to be feeling pretty good right now.
And Mark Few's got a Sweet 16 streak to uphold. It will be 12 if they are able to knock off Kansas or Samford.
Wow.
We had Tennessee took down St. Peter's pretty early. I didn't realize that this was the Ziegler brothers game. Sakai on Tennessee and his brother Armani on St. Peter's. Fortunately, the Peacocks really just couldn't get anything going in this one, and this game was over quick. We have got, and we've got the the 3 games in action right now. We're gonna have to hold off and talk about those tomorrow because it's late and we want to talk about tomorrow's game. So, Joe, quick preview for tomorrow. It's almost midnight. We're gonna get out of here really quickly. The first game tomorrow, big one, 8-9 game, FAU Northwestern. Should be a good start to the Friday slate.
Yeah, Sean, as we said on Sunday, I think it's just going to come down to the end. It really will. FAU's favored by 3.5. This might be a game where Boo Booey might need to pull one out of his out of the air, we'll say. It's late, so I don't want to accidentally get us censored. But yeah.
So we got a couple of other games tomorrow. We've got another big one, 3:10 on True TV. We've got New Mexico and Clemson. Lobos are favored in this one. Could the 11s complete the 4-way 11-seed sweep?
I think so. And Sean, one of your Final Four teams got knocked out today. This is my ride or die right here in a lot of my brackets. I really need House and Bashburn to show up. And there's a reason why they're favored, Sean. New Mexico has dynamic guard play. They have experience. And frankly, I think this is a team that was underseeded. This team should not have been an 11. This team should have had to win the Mountain West tourney to be in. So this could be one of those where it's 6-11, but it truly could have been like an 8-9 game.
And we've got Yale and Auburn, Texas A&M and Nebraska at 6:50, Vermont and Duke at 7:10, Purdue at 7:25, Wisconsin James Madison at 9:40. It's essentially the same slate of games except copied over to tomorrow. So we'd like to get into those games clearer, but unfortunately we are tired and want to go to sleep. So we'll see you again tomorrow night. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Epic first day hoops. Let's hope